Dr. King's Memorial. Introduction. Each year, people of all ages visit the memorial that honors Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. in Washington, D.C. A large sculpture of Dr. King and some of his famous words inspire visitors. Who was Dr. King and why do we remember him? Dr. King was a civil rights leader. He worked throughout his lifetime for equal rights for all people. The South. Dr. King grew up in Georgia in the 1930s. During his childhood in the South, he faced racism and laws that were unfair to black people. Laws in the United States kept the black people and the white people segregated or separate from one another. Not all states follow these laws. However, many states in the South enforced them. In the South, black people and white people were not allowed to marry each other. Black children could not attend the same school as white children. Black people had to use different drinking fountains from white people. Black people had to sit at the backs of city buses. The front seats were reserved only for white people. Black people were not allowed to ride in the same railroad cars as white people. Black people and white people had to use different public restrooms. The law said that everything would be separated but equal. However, many facilities for black people were not as nice, clean, or well kept as those for white people. Dr. King's work. Dr. King wanted the unfair laws to change and for all forces to be treated equally under the law. His dream was that Americans would come together as one people without racism. He gave many speeches and spoke with many people about how to change the laws. Dr. King wanted to use peaceful or nonviolent ways to make changes. He said there was already too much hate in the world to use violence to fight racism. Dr. King and his followers protested the unfair laws by refusing to follow them. For example, many black people held sittings during which they sat at whites-only counters in restaurants. They refused to move, and some people, including Dr. King, were arrested. Dr. King and his supporters marched with many people as another nonviolent way to protest. They hoped to make people, especially law makers, realize that the unfair laws should be changed. After marching in Washington, D.C., Dr. King delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech at the Lincoln Memorial in 1933. He affected many people with powerful words. New laws. Because of his work of Dr. King and another, the government changed the segregation laws. in 1934. The new laws are much fairer. It is now against the law to treat some people better than other people because of their race. Black children and white children can go to the same schools. People can sit where they want to buses and trains, and in restaurants. The same water fountains and the restrooms can be used by anyone, no matter their race. Dr. King's dream. Dr. King wanted all people to be free, and he wanted laws that treated everyone fairly. He dreamed that people of every race would get along. We remember Dr. King when we visit the memorial in Washington, D.C. by honoring his dream of fair laws and free people. We carry on the work that Dr. King began.